Welcome to the last lesson on climate of India, where we shall be focusing on the characteristics of Indian monsoon. Well, there are 5 other lessons from this chapter. The video links of all those lessons are provided in the description for your reference. So let's begin today's lesson. We know India enjoys tropical monsoon climate with 4 distinct seasons: summer, advancing monsoon, retreating monsoon, and winter. By studying Indian climate, we can conclude that monsoon is an important part of it. It lasts for about 6 to 8 months. Firstly comes the season of advancing monsoon, and then it is followed by the season of retreating monsoon. This monsoon has a significant influence on the lifestyle of Indians and also affects the Indian economy by supporting agriculture. Now, there are some unique characteristics of Indian monsoon. Let's know about them. Well, the word monsoon is derived from an Arabic word mawsim, which means seasons. Well, the term actually refers to the seasonal reversal of winds that is witnessed in the Indian subcontinent. This is to say that the monsoon winds travel from sea to land during summer. So, the winds blow from southwest direction during summer. Whereas during winter, as we can see here, the winds blow from land to sea. That is, the winds blow from northeast direction during winter. So we find that there is a significant change in the direction in which the winds blow, and this happens due to change in temperature and pressure conditions, specifically due to shift in pressure belts. Now, what is meant by shift in pressure belts? Let's find out. These two diagrams show the major pressure belts of the world. To know more about pressure belts, you can refer to the link present at the top right corner of your screen. Well, we know during summer the sun is directly overhead the Tropic of Cancer and not over the equator. Due to this particular latitude, that is Tropic of Cancer, gets heated up intensely. As a result, the pressure belts shift northwards. See, this is the condition of pressure belts when the sun is directly overhead the equator, whereas during summer we find there is northward shift in pressure belts. And this happens because the sun is directly overhead the Tropic of Cancer. Now, during winter, the sun's position shifts and it is directly vertical over the Tropic of Capricorn. This particular latitude gets heated up intensely. As a result, the pressure belts, following the same logic, shifts southward. So, during winter, we find southwards shift in pressure belts. Now, if we look into this particular pressure belt, this one is the equatorial low pressure belt and it lies just across the equator. This equatorial low pressure belt is also known as ITCZ, which stands for Intertropical Convergence Zone. So, this ITCZ, as you can see here, shifts northwards by some degrees. And during winter, this ITCZ shifts southwards by some degrees. Now, let's see what happens as a result of this shift in ITCZ and how does it affect the Indian monsoon. So, as mentioned just now, the equatorial low pressure belt or ITCZ shifts northwards during summer due to the apparent movement of sun. Especially, it has been noticed that this equatorial low pressure belt or ITCZ lingers over 20 to 25 degree north latitude, especially over the northern plains. Now, this ITCZ is a low pressure region, and this low pressure region that prevails over the northern plains attracts the southeast trade winds of the southern hemisphere, which after crossing the equator gets deflected and blow towards India in southwest direction. Therefore, the monsoon winds that are prevalent over the Indian subcontinent during summer are known as southwest monsoon winds, and they are named after the direction in which they blow. Now during winter, the conditions gets reversed. The equatorial low pressure region, or ITCZ, shifts southwards due to the apparent change in the position of the sun. And this ICCZ lingers to the south of the equator. Now since here we find that a low pressure region develops over the Indian Ocean, and this attracts the northeast trade winds of the northern hemisphere. So the northeast trade winds blow from land towards the sea and in this direction, that is in northeast direction, and these winds that are prevalent during winter are known as northeast winds, and they are named after the direction in which they blow. Thus, we find that during summer, winds blow from southwest direction, or southwest monsoon winds are prevalent during summer, whereas during winter, northeast trade winds are prevalent over the Indian subcontinent. So we find that Indian monsoon is characterized by seasonal reversal of wind, and it is an important characteristic of Indian monsoon. Now we shall discuss about some more characteristics of Indian monsoon. Another important characteristic of Indian monsoon is that it does not rain continuously for all the days during monsoon season. Rather, it rains for some days and then it is followed by a period of dry spell. So, rainfall occurs in India at the intervals of dry spell in between wet spells. Now look at this chart very carefully. This chart shows the weather conditions for the month of August that corresponds to the monsoon season. Now here we can see that from 3rd August to 7th August it rains continuously, whereas then it is followed by some days when it rains for shorter time. Then it is followed by some days when the amount of rainfall decreases. Again, look at here. Here we find that from 21st August till 24th, it does not rain at all. So we find that rainfall occurs at some intervals of dry and wet spells. Now during this period, when it rains heavily and torrentially for a span of 4 to 5 days, is known as burst of monsoon. That is, the wet spell of Indian monsoon is known as burst of monsoon. Whereas here, when it does not rain at all for a span of 4 to 5 days and we see a clear sky, is known as a dry spell or break in monsoon. So break refers to the dry spell, whereas burst refers to the wet spells. And an important feature of Indian monsoon is that rainfall occurs here at the intervals of dry and wet spells. Well, another important feature of Indian monsoon is that not whole of India enjoys rain at the same time. This is to say that there are some parts where rain comes early, whereas there are some other parts where rainfall occurs at other months. Look at these two charts. The first chart shows the date of arrival of monsoon and the second chart shows the date of departure of monsoon winds. Here we see that the southern part of the country receives rain first. It receives rain almost by the first week of June. Then the monsoon winds gradually proceed towards the northern plains. The northwestern part of the country is the last to receive the monsoon winds. It receives these winds at around a period of midweek of July. Now, although the northwestern part of the country is the last to receive rain, but it is the first to witness departure or withdrawal of monsoon winds. The monsoon winds depart this part of the country by almost the first week of September. Then the winds blow over the northern plains and gradually proceed towards southern India. The monsoon winds finally exit India by the last week of October, and then the climate gradually dries up. So this is the pattern or timing of monsoon winds. We learned that the southern part of India is the first to receive the monsoon winds and the last to witness the withdrawal of monsoon winds, whereas the northernmost or the northwestern part of the India is the last to receive the monsoon winds, whereas the first to witness the withdrawal of monsoon winds. So by studying these two maps, we can conclude that Indian monsoon is sporadic and erratic in nature, which means that it is uneven and non-uniform. Now, before proceeding with our lesson, let us try to answer this question. The monsoon winds strike the southern part of India by the first week of, and the options given are June, July, August or September. Well, which of these options do you think is the correct one? Well, you can't remember. We just read that monsoon winds strike the southernmost part of India by the first week of June. So the correct option is June. In fact, the southernmost part of the India is the first to receive these monsoon winds. So the correct option will be June. Now let us proceed with our lesson. Now, not only the timings of monsoon winds vary, but also the rate of precipitation differs throughout the country. Well, this map shows the distribution of rainfall in India. Here we can see that there are some portions that receive heavy amount of rainfall, that is the western coastal plain of India and the northeastern part of India. The amount of rainfall occurring in these regions exceed 200 centimeter. In fact, the world's rainiest place, that is Monsoon, is situated here in Meghalaya, which is a part of a region of heavy rainfall. Now, the areas adjacent to these regions of heavy rainfall receive moderate amount of rainfall, about 100 to 200 centimeter. Well, some portions of western coastal plain, a huge portion of northern plain, including the eastern coast of India, falls under the category of moderate rainfall. Now, if we move towards the interior parts of the country, then we shall find that here the amount of rainfall is quite low, about 60 to 100 centimeter. Well, these regions receive low precipitation because by the time the monsoon winds arrive these regions, their moisture content decreases, which is why they receive little precipitation. And finally, the northwestern part of India and the northernmost part of India receives scanty rainfall below 60 centimeter. In fact, Thar Desert, which is located here, receives an annual rainfall of less than 25 centimeter. In fact, these regions in India are very dry. Well, the distribution of rainfall in India is such because we know the Arabian Sea branch of southwest monsoon winds enter India from this side. So maximum rainfall occurs here. Again, the Bay of Bengal branch of southwest monsoon winds enters India from the northeastern side, and then they proceed towards the northern plains. So this part of India again receives high amount of rainfall. Now, by the time these winds enter the interior part of the country, their moisture content decreases, which is why these regions receive less amount of rainfall. Thus, overall, we find that the distribution of rainfall in India is uneven and non-uniform. Well, another important characteristic of Indian monsoon is that rainfall in India is always inconsistent and uncertain, which means that the monsoon winds may arrive early or late. Look at these newspaper clippings. Here we can find change in rainfall pattern over the years. In some of the years, we find that monsoon arrived very lately. That is, in the year 2017, 19, 2020, rainfall occurred very lately, almost by the midweek of June, when it is actually supposed to enter India by the first week of June. But in these years, rainfall occurred very lately, almost by the midweek of June. Now, not only the timings of these monsoon winds vary, but also the rate of precipitation differs. For instance, in some of the years, that is in 2022 and 2021, we find that it rained excessively, almost about 40 to 50% higher than the normal rate. Whereas in 2017, the rate of precipitation was almost 13% lower than the normal rate of rainfall. Thus, we find that Indian monsoon is inconsistent and uncertain, and we find deviations from the normal conditions of monsoon. Now, let us see what happens as a result of these irregularities in monsoon. Well, to understand how irregularities in monsoon affects the country of India, let's have a look at these two pictures. The first picture shows that the soil has completely dried up, and it refers to drought condition. Well, drought happens due to delayed rain and scanty rainfall. Now, the second picture shows that the city is completely underwater. Thus, it shows the situation of a flood. Now, flood occurs due to heavy and torrential rainfall. Thus, we find that abnormalities or irregularities in monsoon often results in droughts and floods. Droughts happen due to scanty rainfall, whereas floods happen due to heavy and torrential rainfall. Now, this drought and flood situation severely affects the lifestyle of Indians and also has a strong impact on Indian economy. So, as mentioned just now, irregularities in monsoon lead to drought and floods, which have a strong impact, or rather a negative impact, on Indian economy. Well, this is because agriculture, which is an important part of Indian economy, is heavily dependent on Indian monsoon, and this agriculture gets affected due to irregularities in monsoon. Well, we know during flood the soil completely dries up and loses its moisture, so it cannot support growth of crops. So drought can lead to crop failure. Again, excessive or heavy rainfall leads to flood. Now, during flood, the crop fields get submerged underwater, and this directly affects crop yield or growth of crops. Thus, flood can also lead to crop failure. In other words, we can say that irregularities in monsoon lead to crop failure, which negatively affects the Indian economy. It mostly affects the poor peasants whose primary occupation is agriculture. Thus, we learn that irregularities or abnormalities in monsoon directly affects productivity of crops, and it also negatively affects the Indian economy by hampering agriculture. So now let us quickly summarize the important characteristics of Indian monsoon. Well, we discussed that Indian monsoon is characterized by the seasonal reversal of winds, which means that the winds blow from sea to land during summer and in southwest direction, and from land to sea during winter or in northeast direction. Also, rainfall in India has dry spells which refer to break in monsoon and wet spells which refer to burst in monsoon. Again, Indian monsoon is sporadic and erratic in nature, which means that not whole of the country receives rain at the same time. The southernmost part of the India is the first to receive rain and the last to observe withdrawal of monsoon winds, whereas the northernmost and the northwestern part of India is the last to receive monsoon winds and the first to observe withdrawal of monsoon winds. Again, rainfall in India is unevenly distributed, which means that there are some places that receives heavy rainfall almost above 200 centimeter, whereas there are some other places that receives rainfall of less than 60 centimeter, that is scanty rainfall. Now, the last characteristic of Indian monsoon is that it is irregular in nature, which leads to drought and floods. We learned that drought occurs due to delayed monsoon and scanty rainfall, whereas flood occurs due to heavy and torrential rainfall. Now, this drought and flood again leads to crop failure, which also has a negative impact on Indian economy. So, these are the major characteristics of Indian monsoon. So this brings us to the end of the chapter on climate of India. In this chapter, we learned that India enjoys tropical monsoon climate with 4 distinct seasons: summer, advancing monsoon, retreating monsoon and winter. And we have discussed in details about each of these seasons. And finally, in this lesson, we discuss about the characteristics of Indian monsoon. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to our 5,000 amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million-plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubt resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, but it's rewarding too. So register for free now.